Hello, my fellow Path of Exilers. So, this is Cryman with Sasquatch Gaming Tech, and I am here to go over a short video on the RNG of Path of Exile 2 and how that affects crafting items. So, I have crafted hundreds of items, and generally, you get a stat that's not good or fairly poor stats now and then that affect the quality of the item that you craft. However, here's a video that I have put together of a couple times that the RNG worked in my favor. So let's get into it. So here we go. So I start off, I change a bow that a crossbow that I found into something that's quite grand. So I go ahead and exalt it a couple times, and then I compare, and I'm like, is it still worth putting more um, of my material into it? I was like, yep, it seems pretty good. So then I up the quality by adding some blacksmith's whetstones. And as you can see, that made a big difference. I throw some artificial orbs in it, giving me some rune slots. Boom, boom. And then I decide what runes I'm going to put into it. So I found out I can't do it inside of there, which seems odd. In POE 1, you could add all of your items to it when it was inside the currency tab, but in this case I couldn't. So 20% increased physical damage. So now I compare again. I'm like, okay, what else do I want to add here? And I'm a lightning damage, so I add some lightning to it. Then I decide, okay, I'm going to Val Orb this and just RNG, see what happens. Sometimes I get really bad things when I do this, but I was like, well, it's worth a shot. So I slam it and I look at it and I'm like, what did it change? And then I'm looking and I'm looking, and then I realize, oh, it added a third rune slot. I was like, okay, that's cool. So I'm at 39 to 101 physical damage, which is pretty good. I got a third slot, so I go and look at what my original weapon was, which is at 404, throw it in there. Now I'm at 802, and I'm like, all right, so 300 additional damage per second. That's pretty good. There's my stats with it. Trying to decide what I want to throw in the third slot, which I've never gotten that lucky in the past. So let's see. Yep, there's all my stats. I'm like, okay, let's throw another 20% physical damage in there. And say accept, yes. And now I'm nearly 900. So I went from 400 some high 400s to almost 900 DPS. Throwing a couple of my currency in there. So that RNG worked out great. So you can see where I went from before to now. All right. So here I buy something from the vendor. I'm like, all right, that seems like a pretty decent weapon. So if you look at it there, you know, physical damage 44 to 63. What I was looking at was the strike deals splash damage, because I was like, all right, maybe that will help. And it already does an additional 12 to 20 physical damage and 2 to life per enemy hit. So I'm like, okay, this seems decent. Let's see what I can get. So I look comparison to what I have currently, which is a rare item. I'm sorry, a unique item. So I'm like, okay, so I'm turn it into a rare. I'm like, all right, so it added some fire damage. Cool, cool. I'm like, okay, is it really worth it? I'm looking, do I want to spend the currency? Because I don't have a whole lot of exalted orbs. So I'm like, okay, yep, seems like it's worth it. So let's slam it and see what happens. And I slam it. All right. So 50% increased physical damage. I'm like, hell yeah. So that looks pretty good. So 66 to 95. Slam it again. Now I get +3 level to all melee skills. I'm like, yes, that is awesome. Compare again. All right. One more time. And causes 39% increased stun buildup. And since I'm a warrior, I'm like, yep, that's right up my alley. Compare one more time. I'm like, okay. So let's throw some blacksmith's whetstones in there. Up the quality. See where my damage is at. So, oh yeah, 20%, 79 to 113. I'm like, all right, that's huge. So, and at this point, I only have one artificial's orb, so I've clipped it out, but I ran around and went and found some more items and got enough to get another. But here I'm comparing. I'm like, all right. So I've done it. I've added the artificial orbs. So I've got the rune stone in there. I'm looking at what I had before. So 379 damage per second. And then rolling slam is my typical action. So I want to look at that. I look at first slam. So it's like 212. And I look at second slam, which does a little bit more damage if the enemy hasn't died already. So 432, and I'm like, all right, that's pretty good, pretty good. And now I'm gonna swap,
tempered by flame.
and now I'm up to 578 on my DPS. I switch back to compare the numbers again. I'm like, all right, 368 on my rolling slam. All right, we're getting somewhere. So then I go and I'm gonna throw some fizz damage in there. Oh, stun threshold first, because I'm trying to stun everything. So throw that in there. All right, and then 20% fizz damage. Slam that in there and boom, 652 and 413 on the rolling slam. So I nearly doubled my damage output. So I don't have a Val Orb, so I can't Val it, which may not have improved it in the first place, but there you go. RNG can work for you. So hopefully, you'll try it. Use that currency. It'll be worth it, because sometimes it works out in the end and you get something awesome. All right, guys, have a good day.